yesterday was all Team Clash day. Yesterday for me was all day working on content for Team Clash. And because I was working on Team Clash, I was getting ready for the game mode because at least at this moment, we haven't gotten the official YouTube video yet for the season, and we haven't gotten the official like preview video from a creator about Team Clash. Spoiler alert, it's not me. But based on the article that was posted by GameSpot, for those who didn't see it, this whole video, right? I mean, this whole article, which showcased all of the cards and all of the card abilities. Based on that, I started deck building. So because I needed to start deck building, I was like, well, let's have some fun here. So I started deck building on all of that, and then realized none of the sites out there have any of these new cards and their new card abilities out there. So I built from scratch decks in my own deck builder imagery to showcase this. At the time yesterday, SnapFan didn't have any of that information in a deck building way that you can implement it into their decks. And I confirmed this with the site owners. So I built decks, and I'm the first person in the Marvel Snap community to showcase visuals of decks that you can take into Team Clash. So I've got 3 decks apiece for all 5 of those different factions, groups, teams, with all the information on every image that you need to understand every single deck. Because there's a lot of new effects, a lot of new values on cards, a lot of new synergies you need to think about and know about. And I'm going to give you a further spoiler. I got a preview. I shouldn't have gotten one, but I got a preview of a list of other synergies and cards that are going to happen. So yeah, second dinner, I'm breaking the news. I'm breaking the news right here and right now ahead of all of you. It's not just the 6 cards that you have to use. Other cards that are things like Avengers, X-Men, Thunderbolts, etc. All of that will be implemented. So there will be giant lists, and I'll show you what I mean, okay? So for an Avengers deck, I was really proud of this imagery. Let me be very clear here, okay? So for an Avengers deck, the 6 cards that we get, you have to use these 6 cards. Now, because there's so many new effects, each of the images have the actual new ability, new costs, new everything in here. So you can actually see what this is and how this plays together. The team effect is on the bottom. So for Avengers, after you play an Avenger, give one of your Avengers there +1 power. That's not exclusive to just the 6 Avengers that every Avengers deck has to play. There is also further information. There is a further list. Now, I'm not gonna give you the whole list because that would be full spoilers. But some of them are really fucking obvious. Like, really obvious. So let's take a look. So I first did a Patriot-focused build. Now you can tell from the way that I've built the graphic that some of them have red borders, like the text, and some of them don't. So if the top 6 cards, if they have a red border, they also get this bottom ability. But if they don't have an extra border and they just exist, like Ultron and Debris, they're in the deck and they're just cards in the deck, okay? So technically, this list, out of all 12 cards, 10 of them get the Avengers bonus. You following me? So after you play any of these red border cards or these 6 cards, give one of your Avengers there +1 power. That's why I like Wasp. That's why I like Squirrel Girl. It's why I like Patriot. So this is leaning into filling up the board. But let's take a reminder look at what these other cards do. This version of Hawkeye is a 1/1. If you play a card here next turn, it gets +2 power. But if it's an Avenger, repeat this ability here. If 10 out of the 12 cards are Avengers, I mean, this is going to keep doing +2, +2, +2, +2. Well, 3 times. Unless if you also have a move card, like a 4/7 Vision. If you have another Avenger here, you can move this. Hey, look, that's an Avenger. You can play the Vision on Hawkeye on turn 4 and then slide it off. But also notice that Vision, if you have another Avenger here, you can move this. You can keep moving it as long as there's an Avenger in the lane. But if you move it to a lane that doesn't have an Avenger, it's stuck there. So keep an eye on that. Team Clash Captain America ongoing. Your other Avengers here have +2 power. So 3, 4, +2s. You get the idea. Thor, draw an Avenger, then shuffle Mjolnir. So now this is straight up card draw with a 3/7 version of Thor. Okay. Doctor Strange 2/2, move one of your Avengers with an on-reveal ability to this location and repeat its ability. Hey, Hawkeye, how you doing? And then there's 611 Hulk, which is on-reveal +2 power for each other Avenger you have here. So it's kind of like a hybrid between High Evo version of Hulk and classic-ish version of Hulk as an on-reveal keywording, which is why he's 611. So now you have all of that happening in every single deck of Avengers. All 6 of those will always be there. But Blue Marvel, Patriot, Squirrel Girl, and Wasp, as well as all 6, also get the bottom ability. So the first deck I built was leaning into the Patriot style synergy. The second deck I built was playing a little bit further into the, well, just straight up good cards type deck. You see Sam Wilson, Captain America. Cosmo for protection does not get the bonus. Shang-Chi, feeling really good given all the amount of plus powers that you're going to see on the board from all the different decks. Enchantress, ongoings are going to be very prevalent in some of the other decks, so having Cosmo and Enchantress as just flat out tech cards, really good. And then of course Blue Marvel again, which is why Wasp, Blue Marvel, Sam Wilson, Captain America, it's a lot of extra power on the board, and those 4 are Avengers. So they all get the +1 power bonus also. There's going to be a lot of power trickling onto the board because of this. Lastly, I went with an Odin White Tiger build because it allows me to play Iron Lad, Wong, Ironheart, Jeff. And given the amount of on reveals, Wong is going to be valuable in many of these cards, which feels great. So why not take the hit on Odin White Tiger, which are not Avengers, play them in the Avengers deck, and then look at all of the other on reveals you can have happen multiple times. That's what I love about this. I absolutely love about this. I think that it's going to be a fun deck. Oh, and I forgot to make a very clear statement here, as you'll see with these decks. The decks that I built were focused on the idea that more people should be able to play this game mode. So a majority of the decks here are not capitalizing on the newest and shiniest and best Series 4 and Series 5 cards. This is really heavily pushing towards accessibility. So all of the lists here, minus a couple of card lists in particular, which you'll see, like there's a Darkhawk list up there in the future. If you don't have Darkhawk, of course, I get it. But the majority of the lists are leaning towards team synergy while being accessible. I did that intentionally because I want more people to be able to join into this game mode that have either just started playing Marvel Snap or may not have a full collection, and I built my decks with that in mind, okay? So let's continue on. Let's go move over into Guardians of the Galaxy. All cards reveal with +1 power at the glowing location. That's the only thing I don't understand yet in the game mode. But irrelevant, you still build with the idea of this is how this works. I'm assuming that's kind of like how the glowing location is like either you're winning that location or there's a featured location like Sanctum does. Exactly. It's one of the two. That would be my assumption. But outside of that, either way, you're playing into synergies. So new versions of the Guardians cards. You have Mantis. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn, give a Guardian in your hand -2 cost. That's a lot. And let me be clear, on all of the decks that I've built, at least 10 out of the 12 cards will be synergetic to the extra ability. So, I mean, this is just a simple turn 4, turn 5 targeting card, and just watch the reductions continually happen. Rocket Raccoon's a 1/3. So instead of giving his normal, 1/1, get +4 if you hit it, if your opponent played a card here this turn, draw a Guardian. It's still a generic 1/3 that has an extra upside to it. That feels pretty good. Team Clash Star-Lord is a 2/3. If your opponent played a card here this turn, give all of your Guardians +1 power. All of them. So there's 10 in this deck. No matter where they are, hand, board, deck. It doesn't say here. It doesn't say this location. It doesn't say this turn. All of them. They all get +1s. Drax. The only reason I'm even entertaining Drax as being a card that's worthwhile that you have to play is because he's now a 3/4. If your opponent played a card here this turn, double this card's power. Because it's basically kind of Thor, kind of old Groot. This is what I think we've all kind of wanted to a degree for him, but I digress. Groot, though, is a 4/10. Discard a non-guardian from your hand unless your opponent played a card here this turn. I mean, there's only 2 non-guardians in the deck. So it's either discarding Profex or Shang-Chi if you happen to have them in your hand, or you just guess it right and he's a straight up 4/10. And then there's 5/7 Gamora on reveal. If your opponent played a card here this turn, destroy their lowest cost card here, which is awesome. So I went a little bit tempo-y, right? I got Medusa in here. I got Profex in here, lane control with Shang-Chi. So that's why we put the Medusa side, and Collector getting cards, ramping into him should feel pretty good as well. Small tweak on another variation by having Yondu, Medusa, and Sarah, because Cosmo does count as a Guardian of the Galaxy. This is now, here, reduce it down by turn 5, or if you get lucky with the Mantis, imagine getting that Sarah reduced down to a 3-cost Sarah. Get that down on turn 3, forget it, game over. Like, you just make everything rain. Throw in a Yondu, throw in a priority Medusa, throw in an Angela, keeping your scaling. I mean, that's a 2/6 without even trying. I just think this is a tremendous amount of points and is incredibly accessible. Like, very accessible deck. Lastly, this is the Darkhawk deck that I was referring to earlier, where it's playing Darkhawk, it's playing Sarah. Hysterically, Rock Slide did count, and I could have had Rock Slide instead of Terrax, and it would have been another Guardian. But Terrax is just that much better than Rock Slide, so I went Terrax and Korg. You could easily make Rock Slide. You get the idea. Nebula does not count as an Avenger. Nebula counts as a Guardian of the Galaxy. Absolutely, she does. She's got the purple. Next up, let's talk spiders. Spiders. All the Spideys. Spider-Verse cards. If I can get it to zoom in the right place. Close enough. It won't work. There we go. Spider-Verse. You get +2 energy if one of your Spider-Verse cards moved last turn. You realize how many spider cards move, yet alone the redone ones? Check this out. New Ghost Spider goes back to being a 1/2, but on reveal, last card you played moves here, like normal Ghost Spider. But if it's a Spider-Verse card, this gains +2 power. Okay? So it's a 1/4 basically almost all the time. Almost all the time it's a 1/4. And like this deck in particular, it's all 12 cards are Spider-Verse cards. All 12 cards. So, I mean, it's just, everything's moving. Then there's Agony, 1/3. After you play a card here, merges with it. But if it's a Spider-Verse card, move it away from here. So it's like Agony plus Silk. Team Clash Scarlet Spider is the activate, add a clone with the same power, then move this to the 3rd location. I love this version of Scarlet Spider. Love this version of Scarlet Spider. So you've got your 3 locations on the board. You play it in location 1. You activate, it activates the cloning location 2, and then the one that's in location 1 moves to location 3. So it has targeting. That's the big thing about this. You play it in a location you're more likely to lose, and it's awesome. Then you've got the Activate Symbiote Spider-Man at 4/6, which does the merge thing, but then replace that card with a Spider-Verse card from your deck. This is the more confusing one of the group, in my opinion. It's more confusing, but if it works the way I think it's going to work, with merging, taking on power, and then putting back into that location another card in its place. So there's still 2 cards essentially now in the lane, but it went from being 3 cards in 3 spaces to 3 cards in 2 spaces. I think that that's just almost too powerful, because it's like Jubileeing Spider-Verse cards, and I love that. Anti-Venom, set the cost and power of your deck's top card to 0 unless that card moves. You know, like, look, just play Anti-Venom on Madam Web, and then boom, power. Done. Ta-da. Spider-Man 2099 is a 5/8 in this version, but for each time your cards move to this game, give +1 power to one of your cards. I love the idea of this card. I hate that it's random. Like, it just sprinkles the +1s all over the place. So if you moved 7 cards by the time you play this, it'll add +1 to 7 random places, okay? This version, I went with a little bit of scaling with a cheap Vulture, a little bit of control with Stegron, and then just move and ramp and keep Silk on the board to always be moving to guarantee the +2 energy on the board all the time. Because remember, for each time your cards move this game, this Spider-Man 2099's giving +1 power. You want that Silk moving and having no predictability whatsoever, just to ramp up how many extra powers the Spider-Man 2099 is going to make rain on the board. The Spider decks in particular are going to feel pretty consistent with this idea. Stegron's in here as a little bit of a control piece, but I think it's still incredibly fun, right? Then take a small variation from 1 to 2, and now we go down the Scream control version of Stegron stuff. Now we're playing Scream, Stegron, Magneto, and Kingpin. And again, every single one of those cards is now also a Spider-Verse card. It's another 12-card deck of Spider-Verse cards because the moves want to benefit it. So why not keep advantage of it? I keep putting Vulture and Madam Web in there because Madam Web is going to want to be in as many of these decks as possible typically. Sure, if you don't have Madam Web, you can substitute it out. There's lots of Spider Mover cards. And Vulture feels just really good as a cheap, movable, reactivate, merging, this, that, the other card. So I like keeping Vulture in a couple of these builds. But then you can also play the new shiny things. And I took the hit and played Cloak into this because of the removal of Madam Web as a showcase that you don't have to have Madam Web. You can still do some Cloak shenanigans and have some fun with it. So it's 11 out of 12. You have your Kraven, you have your Silk, but if you have the new Ezekiel Sims and Prowler, makes a load of sense here to play with Silk. So you're playing the ideas of a Hydra Stomper deck without needing Hydra Stomper in there. And just remember, you're almost always going to be on an Arishem, not an Arishem, on a Wiccan style curve because everything's moving all the time. You're always getting +2 energy. Starting on turn 3, you're always at +2 energy. There's just so much that can happen there. Now let's talk Thunderbolts, okay? Thunderbolts, I don't even know if it's gonna, close enough. Your Thunderbolts reveal with +2 power at locations you're losing. This is the group I'm most worried about because conceptually, this is all about, coming from behind, the underdogs. I get it. But I fear that it's actually going to end up being too difficult. I'll show you what I mean. Like, we don't get Bucky, because that's not when this happened. It's Winter Soldier, who's a 1/7. You can only play this at locations you're losing. I've wanted a card like that for a while. I just didn't think it would show up like this. Valentine is a 2 -1. On reveal, give a random Thunderbolt in your hand -1 cost. Add a random Thunderbolt to your hand and then give that -1 cost. So yes, you do want a lot more Thunderbolts in here. This deck rocks a Shang-Chi and a Shadow King in particular, but then the rest are all Thunderbolts. Toxidoxy and Ghost. Toxidoxy's a 2/2. Still give 2 characters in your hand +2 power, but you can't play them next turn unless they're Thunderbolts. So now it's just like generically a really good card. Just really a good card. Ghost, 3/6, costs 1 less for each location you're losing. So you're looking to like throw lanes and then turns 4, 5, and 6 just go bah and make it all rain chaos. That's the whole goal of the entire style of the deck. Because then when you play it, it gets the extra +2 power, extra +2 power, extra +2 power. The new 4-cost Taskmaster is on reveal gains power equal to your other highest power Thunderbolt. So that's why Crossbones is going to make appearances regularly. That's why Sentry is going to be a good synergy with Taskmaster because Sentry still does the -9 void in the location, but it only does it in locations if you where you do not have a Thunderbolt. So now you can play Sentry in the right lane, but if all 3 lanes have a Thunderbolt, no void ends up on the board. So there's a lot of upside to this 4/9 that can't be Shang-Chi'd. That's why Baron Zemo is also a lot of fun, stealing some free power. There's a lot of 1-cost cards that are going to have synergies, so Elektra makes a big sense in here too. Crossbones is to really help reinforce the Taskmaster, and Claw is Claw. Need I say more? Similarly, with the come from behind mindset, you can swing a load of power. What color are the black belt? They're just darker. Like this one has all of them. For black, like you can see, I know, I should have made them a little thicker, but Crossbones has the border, Shadow King and Shang-Chi does not. The Titania play is also a lot of fun. You can send it over, switch the priority, steal it back. Leader allows you a play that you can take the lead on turn 5 and then leader it for 6, have the advantage. Red Hulk is going to be taking on a bunch of power because it's going to constantly be accumulating. So you have big plays that allow your Taskmaster to go crazy. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun idea. Just use priority as you need it. That's the whole point of the deck. Use priority as you need it. Gorgon is in here because there's going to be a lot of card generation in some of the other decks, by the way. As you saw with like the the Avengers deck, there's going to be a lot of card generation, but we'll get to some of the other card gen stuff in a little bit. Lastly, for the Thunderbolts, I went down the path of using Viper Hood, which are both Thunderbolts. The only card in this deck that is not a Thunderbolt is Shadow King. But there's a lot of here. Let me put stuff on your side of the board. If you want to take a Shadow King and throw in a Nihilist, you're more than welcome to. But I decided to play Punisher because he has synergy and it's a lot more fun. Because why not? Cloak gets a synergy in here to move around some negative things and power as you want to get that negative loss and then get the +2 extra power to go back over the top of it. Like, there's some cool things you could do with moving around your power, which is why I liked Cloak in here. Again, these decks are built for accessibility. Let me be clear. Are these going to be the best meta decks day one? For Team Clash, I have no idea. I would like to see one of them do well, don't get me wrong. Like the Spider-Verse stuff is going to be really strong, but we might be pleasantly surprised by expert pilots using the Thunderbolts deck, knowing how to throw priority and take advantage of it. The last group to join is the X-Men, where you get +1 energy for each location where you have 3 or more X-Men. So for these decks, it is even further important to have at least 10 out of 12 cards always end up being X-Men. So breaking it down, let's take a look at why that's going to be super important. Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, you can move this once, but when this moves, give it +1 power for each of your X-Men at the new location. So it can gain up to 3 more power, unless if it has a card that can move out and yada yada. You get the idea. Okay? Then there's Wolverine, who's now a 2/2 end of turn. If you have unspent energy, destroy this to regenerate it with +2 power. At a location where you have an X-Man, and that, even though that nomenclature bothers me, I know it's correct. I literally had a conversation with Glenn Jones about it because it bothered me that much. But I love the idea of Wolverine just constantly spontaneously combusting every turn. I just think that's funny as fuck. Just so mad. Jean Grey is a 2/3, which also already sounds fantastic, but the next time you get bonus energy as the turn starts, draw a card. But remember, the ability gives you +1 energy for each location where you already have 3 or more X-Men. So just load up a lane early, play Jean Grey, and you're also drawing every turn. Like, getting cards into your hand is going to be incredibly easy with this deck. Then there's Cyclops, who's now a 3/1 ongoing, breathe, gains power equal to the most energy you had in one turn this game. So read that really carefully. Gains power equal to the most energy you had in one turn this game. So you play this down on turn 3 as you have 3 energy. It gains 3 power as an ongoing. Part of me wants to read this as next turn, if you have 5 energy, it goes from being a 3/4 to a 3/9 because it's gaining power when you had it in one turn. So either it'll change to a 3/6 or it'll just change to a 3/9 because it's adding, you had 5 more energy, you had 7 more energy, or it's just going to be whatever the max total is. Like if you end up having 10 energy in a turn, then this becomes a 3/11. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, it's still better than current Cyclops, and I think that's the most important. Then there's Jubilee 4/1, add the top card of your deck to this location, but now in addition, give it power equal to your unspent energy. Final turn plays? Yes, please. New Profex as a 5/5 says you get +1 energy for each turn. You get +1 energy each turn for each of your X-Men here. Here, keyword there. So think of the amount of energy that you could have if you play Profex in a lane with, let's say, 2, leave it open. Leave it with 2 other. You get another +2 energy, then the X-Men effect. You get +1 energy for each location where you have 3 or more X-Men. So that location alone gives another +1. So going into turn 6 with 9 energy is actually going to be very regular, very easy. Very, very, very easy. But I decided to lean into this. I went with big numbers. Legion, Hellion, Sasquatch, Magneto. Just because it's going to have a ridiculous amount of energy, this version of the build is, let me lean further into that energy play. Legion, Hellion, Sasquatch, Magneto. Why is Morph in here? Because I think you're actually going to see a lot of X-Men decks day 1. And Morph copying another X-Men will just further feed all of this. Are you playing Morph every game? Probably not. But the second you know you're up against an X-Men deck, Morph's value just went through the roof. Like, massively through the roof. Next up, I went with a control build. And to be honest, full transparency, full stop, in my opinion, this style of deck right here, as I'm gesturing wrong, this style of deck, this is going to be the best deck in the mode. That's my prediction, that this is going to be the best deck in the mode, because look at all of the cards that organically fit in X-Men decks. Cannonball, Juggernaut, Mercury, Rogue, Storm. This is just stupid. This is just absolutely stupid, in my opinion. Yeah. It's a straight up tech slop. Exactly. It's a straight up tech slop, and it's going to be very strong. You're going to have a ridiculous amount of energy to play Cannonball Mercury on the same turn, or Juggernaut Cannonball on the same turn. This is going to be a destructive style deck. Lastly, I went with just a beat 'em up, beef 'em up deck. So a little bit of extra power with the Shuri Taskmaster, get some extra stuff on the board, like that Cyclops is going to be great in a lane for Taskmaster to copy as is. You can beef up other pieces, and I just wanted a reason to play Colossus. Let's Magic Colossus, just get extra turns, get all the cards on the board, let pieces just start to add +1 power, move this around. Wolverine's constantly adding 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Does it need to be like this? No. Did I want it to be accessible? Yes. That's the whole point, is I just want the decks to be accessible. So that's why if you look at the decks, most of them are heavy Series 3, a couple of Series 4 sometimes, maybe a Series 5 thrown in and sprinkled. But for the most part, I want these decks to be ones that new players or beginning players or players that have been playing less than a year even can, for the most part, create and build right away. If I had to take a guess on which of the 5 factions are going to end up being the strongest right out the gate, I think Spiders are going to be really good. I think the X-Men are going to be really good. And I think the Avengers are going to be really good. I think the skill cap is going to be Thunderbolts, though. Because people who can operate a Thunderbolts deck well are going to be forces to be reckoned with. And the Guardians of the Galaxy, in my opinion, is going to be the worst deck, hands down. Because so much of the ability is of the strength of the deck is about targeting, and even good players screw up targeting all the time. So for Team Clash, there are now 15 decks for you to start with, to get some ideas from, to theory craft with, and I want to hear from you. I want you to talk to me and let me know what you're excited to try in Team Clash, now knowing a little bit more about it, how the decks are constructed, etc. Take these decks, screenshot them, share them with your friends, get some feedback, and tell me what variations on newer cards you want to add into those different decks. Remember, there will be further synergies. That other, like X-Men, like we showcased, will be available in the X-Men decks. Now, that list is not fully available, but you can probably guess for the most part for a good idea of how that's going to work. Some of them are no-brainers. A majority of them, for most of it, are no-brainers. So get that in mind as you're starting to get ready for Team Clash. If you like this breakdown, hit like, hit subscribe down below. I greatly appreciate all of you as always. Hopefully this was accessible and a little bit easier to understand going into Team Clash later this month. And as always, I'll see you next time.